Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist congregation of Terre, Haute. This congregation welcomes all people, regardless of their age, religion, race, nationality, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or anything else that has been used to divide people. We are a group of people with our own opinions, our own ideas, our own dreams. But we share ideals. We share a common belief in a liberal religion. In our discussions, we may disagree with each other, but we must always remember that what unites us is stronger than what separates us. We must always end the service aware of the love that we have for each other.
Address the sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. The sixth principle seems extravagant in its hopefulness and improbable in its prospects. Can we continue to say we want world community, peace, liberty, and justice for all? The world is full of genocide, abuse, terror, and war. What have we got ourselves into? As naive or impossible as the sixth principle may seem, I'm not willing to give up on it. In the face of our culture's apathy and fear, I want to imagine and help create a powerful vision of peace by peaceful means, liberty by liberatory means, justice by just means. I want us to believe and to live as if we believe that a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all is possible. There is no guarantee that we will succeed, but I can assure you that we will improve ourselves and improve the world by trying. Reverend Sean Dennison, Tree of Life, Congregation, McHenry, Illinois. Today's opening words are provided by Doddie and are actually from the Reverend Gail R. Geisenheiner. The vibrant heritage of our Unitarian Universalist faith insists that each one of us, indeed each human being, holds within them great potential, rich promise. We each bring the potential for building the beloved community. We bring the willingness for taking on constructive change, for engaging in mature growth, and for achieving a deeper humanity than we have known. We yearn to provide hope and promise for our children, for our elders, and for ourselves. We covenant to walk together with kindness, relying on love to guide our steps, and we seek justice for all beings, that they may know joy. We gather to yearn, we gather to remember, we gather for solace and for change. We gather for worship. Amen, and blessed be. Opening hymn 147.
Precious worth when every
Today's transitional words are, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." The eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. Today's speaker is Reverend Doddie Stone, who will introduce us to the eighth principle that is being proposed at this year's UU General Assembly. Reverend Stone is a retired UU minister who has served congregations in California, New Hampshire, and New Jersey.
I started attending a Unitarian Universalist congregation in California in 1968, in the height of the war on Vietnam. I learned they were committed to justice issues, and I marched with them down Gary Street in San Francisco in opposition to the war. I soon learned that they were equally outspoken about nuclear arms and poverty and inequality in any form. I followed their activities, and by 1988 was so hooked on their principles and practices that I attended my first General Assembly, where the ideas of becoming a welcoming congregation were first being introduced. By 1995, I was so involved that I was on the way to becoming an actual candidate for ministry and taking part in the introduction of the seventh principle on earth-centered spirituality. And I still have a copy of the sermon that I did in support of that principle. A lot has happened in the past 25 years, and once more we are aware that the cries for justice continue to grow, and we need to update our vision and participation to be fully present as a denomination to answer the call. Much of what I say this morning can be found on the UUA website, and I will be paraphrasing various comments to give us a little bit more background. The eighth principle was conceived by Paula Cole Jones, a lifetime UU who believed that Unitarian Universalism needs to expand beyond our current seven principles to make space for true, deeply multicultural, beloved community. It has already been informally adopted by a number of UU congregations, and some people are working for it to be adopted by the whole denomination. It's scheduled to be part of this year's General Assembly that will be meeting next month. And John Lunsford is planning to be a Zoom delegate from our congregation, and we have financial assistance available if anyone else is interested in attending to get the most current information. A common response to the idea of proposing a new principle is, why is it important that we affirm and promote another principle? Don't we already do that? It seems that it's summed up in the other principles. And some people think that we're lifting up one group of people and leaving others to think that they're less worthy because about 400 years ago, their ancestor did something bad to the ancestors of others. In other words, some think, why can't we just let it go and move forward? One of the answers is that we all seek to protect ourselves from feeling bad, and questioning that which causes discomfort can be a tool to shield ourselves from those feelings. Often, we as UUs live in the whys, W-H-Y. We are a community of seekers. Perhaps it's even built into our principles. But only asking why allows us to disconnect our brains from our emotions. I'm not saying we should never ask why. Whether we should not only ask why, but also how, who, what, and when. Take a moment to read that proposed 8th principle to yourself. It was our transition words in our order of service. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. How does it feel in your body when you take in those words, working to dismantle racism? Check in yourself. What are you noticing? If we are to create a beloved community, we need to know that everyone won't agree on everything, and that's okay. It's in such times that we must circle around each other to build a better community, a community in which we are all seen and valued. Although our history is not spotless, UUs have often and long been at the forefront of combating racism in the United States. From calls for the abolition of slavery in the late 1700s, through active engagement in the civil rights movement in the 1960s, to subsequent decades of trying to promote social justice. UUs have helped push our nation to examine its shortcomings and contradictions, to evolve in our individual and collective understandings of our nation's founding ideals. However, we have a mixed record historically in some areas of social justice. Both as Unitarians and Universalists in the days before the 1961 merger, we've had people on both sides of abolitionism, including people like Jefferson, who was a slaveholder. Still, we continue to try to update our understandings. Recently, the Thomas Jefferson Church in Louisville has voted to change its name in an effort to be more aware of past wrongs. And there have also been name changes in other congregations and even in district names in efforts to be more intentional. It's a step forward because for people identified as white, it's too easy to ignore these issues, which is exactly what keeps the system of racism in our society alive. And in fact, it's worsening right now. Many UUs contend that the absence of any mention of racism and other oppressions is a glaring omission. The UUA has just recently gone through a crisis related to inclusive hiring, resulting in more intentional awareness in diversity in our staffs on all levels. And the UUA has done well with women becoming ministers and leaders. The 7th principle resulted from the work of the women's movement, within UUism. The LGBTQIA plus community is well represented as members, ministers, RE staff, and other leadership in individual congregations and the UUA. When I first attended my first General Assembly, the lesbian and gay ministers met in secret, and most were not public to their congregations about their sexual orientation. The welcoming congregation was just being introduced and has been a successful model for greater understanding. And our Terre, Haute congregation became a welcoming congregation from that program almost 20 years ago. And next month, during Gay Pride, you'll have 2 speakers sharing more on this topic. But back to dismantling racism, white supremacy, and other oppressions that need changing at the personal and the institutional levels. The UU principles were designed to be dynamic, not a fixed creed. It means we always want to continue to be educating ourselves, exploring truths, and raising our consciousness. When we get to a new level of understanding and clarity, our structure makes it possible to reflect that. Some people may believe that UU is the only religion that intentionally builds in flexibility to acknowledge the importance of ongoing truths. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do remember when environmental awareness reached a critical mass and we introduced the 7th principle. Adding an 8th principle is really just the beginning of action, because people identified as white, it's too easy to ignore these issues. And that's exactly what keeps the system of racism in our society alive and is actually worsening right now. The 8th principle reminds us that we need something to renew our commitment, to hold ourselves accountable. I'm confident that we will have new directions to explore in the months ahead as denominations and as citizens of the world as we add the 8th principle. But what we do with it will be up to us.
Thank you, Doddie. Today's closing hymn is number 318. Today's closing words are once again from the Reverend Gail Giesenheiner. The work that we do here makes a difference. The yearning, the praying, the singing, the aspiring, the questioning, the affirming, it all makes a difference. In love and courage, human lives are strengthened here. Go out from this place knowing in your bones that you are loved and cherished. Bring that certainty with you wherever you go. Be bearers of love and justice. Walk in love, walk in kindness, go in peace. Amen and blessed be.
May the blessings of love rest upon you. May peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore.
Go in peace, know that you are loved and that your life is sacred.